And I'm going to defer now to David and Bill.
I'm not paid to be here either. I'm just an interested teacher who helped write the standards. And the reason why I helped write the standards and the reason why I am here today is that as a white male in society, I'm given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn. And as a result, I think it's really important. I think it's really important that all kids get an equal opportunity to learn how to read. And I think I had decided advantages as a result of who I was, not being any choice of mine. And when I walk into places like Roberto Clemente High School on the west side of Chicago, I think it's really important that those kids learn how to read just as well as I had the opportunity to read. And in creating an equitable educational opportunity for all kids, I think this is actually the greatest lesson we can teach our kids.
So there you go. Just a little bit of that video. One of the engineers of Common Core saying he did it really to end white privilege. Anyway, we'll be right back. Lots of news. And at the bottom of the hour, Joe Biggs' special report with the U.S. Navy SEAL. Don't miss it. Be right back. All right, there we go. Breaking the law. A lot of people like to do that. A lot of people in high positions. And if you think about it, it makes sense, doesn't it? The most ruthless, often sociopathic people tend to climb to the top because they're willing to do more. They're willing to forbid social norms and morals and other constraints and do whatever is necessary to get to the top. And it's a very sad reality. You know, I had to go suit up here, right? Got my suit on for TV viewers, my jacket rather, because we're going to get into some more news here. And Joe Biggs is coming up at the bottom of the hour to talk about his special report that we're going to play for the first time, where he hangs out with a U.S. Navy SEAL and gets some really, really cool inside information. But first of all, we're going to talk about this story today, which I think is one of the biggest stories of the day for sure, if not in a very long time. 5 banks sued in U.S. for rigging $9 trillion agency bond market. We talked about this a little bit before if you're listening last segment. 5 major banks and 4 traders were sued on Wednesday in a private U.S. lawsuit claiming they conspired to rig prices worldwide in a more than $9 trillion market for bonds issued by government-linked organizations and agencies. Bank of America, Credit Agricole SA, Credit Suisse Group, a bunch of the banks were accused of secretly agreeing to widen the bid-ask spreads they quoted customers of supernatural, sub-sovereign, and agency bonds. Lawsuit filed in Manhattan federal court by the Boston Retirement System said the collusion dates to at least 2005, was conducted through chat rooms and instant messaging and caused investors to overpay for bonds they bought or accept low prices for bonds they sold. And yes, I didn't get the exact terminology on some of those words. I'm bad and discredited completely and don't listen to anything I say. But look at this part. They were speaking in chat rooms and instant messaging and talking how they caused investors to overpay for bonds. So you think about $9 trillion, right? Just try and visualize $9 trillion. You most certainly cannot. And it's articles like these that kind of just float away and no one thinks about because $9 trillion is such an unattainable number. You can't even grasp it. If someone broke into your house, for example, and let's say you had $500 cash stored under your bed, and they broke into your house and stole the $500, like the cash, they ripped through your sheets or whatever, they stole the cash and ran away, you'd probably be really mad. You'd probably just be really mad. You'd call the police or whatever. They stole my cash, my savings. Maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 10,000, right? You'd get pissed off. But $9 trillion, that doesn't seem like a real thing. It's just like in war, if you hear, maybe down the street, you hear someone got shot, it's really, really sad. But, 1 million people died. It doesn't make sense. And that's kind of how they get away with these things too, because of rigging a $9 trillion bond agency market, which doesn't even compute to most people. And I admit I don't fully understand how it works either. That is how real criminals get away with things. The complex things that are going on. And it also reminds me of, touched on this a little bit earlier, why should taxpayers give banks $83 billion a year from Bloomberg? This is one of my favorite stories. Even though it kind of defends the bailouts a little bit, it highlights something. Why are we giving banks $83 billion a year? And here's the key part as Washington's blog broke it down so long ago in 2013. Crazy how the news cycle flies, isn't it? Remember this like it was yesterday. Virtually all of the big banks' profit come from taxpayer bailouts and subsidies. The big banks would just about break even in the absence of corporate welfare. The government has propped up the big banks for years through massive, never-ending bailouts and subsidies. Bloomberg noted last year that 77% of JP Morgan's net income comes from government subsidies. Bloomberg reported yesterday, and this is the quote from that Bloomberg article I was talking about earlier. What if we told you that by our calculations, the largest U.S. banks aren't really profitable at all? What if billions of dollars they allegedly earn for their shareholders were almost entirely a gift from U.S. taxpayers? Well, it turns out they are. The banks would break even without our gracious help and our gracious lending hand. So instead of someone coming in your house and stealing your $500 cash like a common criminal or a burglar or a thug or whatever, the big banks, and yes, I understand that at the same time you could call me names and label me because the banks also run this economy and they're propping us up. Yes, but we'll narrow it down instead of the big banks because that's a big spooky boogeyman, isn't it? How about the people in these organizations, whether it's the government, the for-profit corporations, the banks, even companies like Monsanto, any company at all? How about that? The people that are nefarious enough to take from everyone else and screw them are the real criminals that you don't see going into your mattress and stealing your money because it's so complex in the loophole systems. You're not seeing cash withdrawn from your account to go pay $83 billion to the banks for their profits. You're also not seeing the little taxes that are all taken of everything, like your cell phone bill. If you look at your cell phone bill, it's like, okay, $20 for cell phone service. And it's like, weird tax here, $20 tax, $10 tax, 10-cent tax, just everything. Everything is just weird and taxed. And it's not the guy openly coming into your mattress and stealing your money. But that's how the system works. And slowly it chips away. And you don't see it. You don't have the accounting, the itemized list of all the things that are being taken from you. And ultimately what happens is you wake up with less money and the bankers make tons of cash and they don't go to prison. And that is how the system works at the highest levels. But that burglar that goes in and steals a bag of chips or goes into a bank in the old school way with a gun and says, give me your money, banks, or give me your money, goes into your house and takes your money, he's going to go to jail. He's going to go to prison. But you see, this is the new con. This is the new system. This is the new modern way of looting. It's through the very complex loopholes and working with the government agencies that are loving and care about you. Now, look, we've got a video list here. I think what we'll do is cover some more news. And again, Joe Biggs is coming up at the bottom of the hour with a very, very special report with him and a U.S. Navy SEAL. So we should talk about this. Bayer makes takeover offer for agriculture giant Monsanto. German drug and chemical maker Bayer, this is from the BBC, has made a takeover bid for agricultural giant Monsanto in a deal that could create the world's biggest supplier of seeds and pesticides. Oh. Monsanto is known as a specialist in genetically modified crops and also known as many other things by many other people. The offer comes amid a wave of consolidation in the industry with rivals Dow Chemical, DuPont, Syngenta all entering mergers recently. However, any tie-up is likely to depend on regulators' competition concerns. There's no assurance, quote, that any transaction will be entered into or consummated on or what terms or whatever, Monsanto said in a statement. So look, the thing about Monsanto is, no matter how you want to slice it, no matter how you want to slice the science up and say, well, GMOs, the studies that say they're bad, oh, they've been disproven, whatever. Okay, maybe that's fine. Maybe I'm willing to accept that. The glyphosate being ruled as a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, everyone freaking out about that, saying it's not true, it's not possible. Glyphosate is most definitely dangerous. I mean, there's no question. Okay, glyphosate's used in Monsanto's Roundup. The guy that said he's going to drink a whole glass of it and, of course, wouldn't do it. I would love to see him drink a glass of it. It's not very healthy. It's a silly thing to say it's so safe and so amazing. And meanwhile, they're doing things that we don't know the implications of. So the funny thing about the debate on the science is it safe? Is it not safe? Maybe the answer is we have no idea at all. But I'll tell you what is the next level of that. Bayer acquiring Monsanto and biopharmaceutical crop expansion, where they would grow the pharmaceuticals in the crops, which they've already been testing for a very, very long time. But I believe that is why Bayer wants to merge with Monsanto. And not to mention also, even if you get past all the science and stuff, because here's the deal, I'm not a qualified scientist, right? Which which people would like to throw out and say, well, you can't even talk about anything. Isn't that funny how people do that, by the way? It's like if you're not a medical doctor, you can't even read research and tell people about it. You're not a doctor. You're not a scientist. You're not qualified to speak in the United States of America. Well, look, because I'm not a doctor or a scientist, sometimes that qualifies me to speak more openly, actually. Sometimes that qualifies me to speak and read things here that are not within my narrowed spectrum, right? But either way, if we're not going to look at any of the science or anything like that, we can look at Monsanto's history and say, well, gee, this seems to be a terrible company. This seems to be a terrible, horrible organization. And we could look at Bayer buying it up and the history of biopharmaceutical crops. Apparently, it's very challenging to say. And we could make a conclusion that, gee, this is probably bad. Probably a merger of two companies that are not going to do much for the safety of public health. Instead, they're probably going to start experimenting with insane things like AIDS vaccine biopharmaceutical crops, which I used to read about the testing on that. Also, McDonald's, another example of these companies that the people in the company don't care about. You know, oh, maybe we shouldn't destroy the world's rarest dolphin and like violate all these laws about fishing and threaten everything. It's all about making 2 more pennies per meal. You see, that's the motto of some of these corporations. It's easier to make 2 more pennies per meal, which probably equates to millions of dollars, than it is to actually make it a higher quality product. Even if it's linked to disease and gives you cancer, it's better to make those 2 pennies, because if we changed the ingredients and we made them higher quality, that would cut down the bottom line. And that's so much more important, right? It's insane what you see. It truly is. This is Anthony Gucciardi. This is the Alex Jones Show, the 4th hour. We'll be right back. One more segment of news. Then also we're coming back with Joe Biggs. Next segment, bottom of the hour. And I'll tell you what, if you go to InfoWarsLife.com right now, you can get Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine for 20% off. And this is a special that's probably going to run for a week or so. Survival Shield X2 for me is the #1 product by InfoWars Life. It's the flagship product. It's the way to go. It is the answer. This is the good halogen. You're getting all of the junk in your body every single time. You're drinking the tap water every single time. You're eating garbage, you know. It's something we can't avoid. Even for me, you know, I try to eat organic. I try to be good. But I'm going to have some bad stuff every now and then, and that's healthy. That's fine, okay? But it's a new world we live in where there is toxic junk around every single corner. And Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine for me is my #1 pick. It's Alex's #1 pick. It's 20% off, mega sale. And these are not just terms that we use like pitchmen, like mega sale, get there right now, Sunday. No, it's the real deal. And it's also on sale. So that's why I'm actually passionate about pushing it, because it's the real deal. And I take it, and I know where it comes from, 7,000 to 12,000 feet under the Earth's surface. It is the real deal from the purple crystals. I've seen it made. I've seen it done. I've seen it extracted. I've seen the vault of the pure iodine. It is amazing stuff. It really, really is. Now, look, Joe Biggs is going to come up on the next segment and talk about his interview. We're going to premiere it here, actually, for the first time on the 4th hour. With a U.S. Navy SEAL. And he's got a lot of really interesting stuff to say, shooting some guns, having some fun. And Joe Biggs is going to come in and talk about it, intro it on the next segment, and then break it down as well. You know, Kit Daniels just brought this story in for me. And it seems like every time I guest host, I can't help but get into the issue of political correctness. You know why I can't help but get into it? Is because everybody else is talking about it all the time. Meanwhile, you know, Monsanto's about to be bought out by Bayer. Want to have some chat about that, right? McDonald's fish stuff going on, the $7 trillion that the banks are screwing us out of, that they're getting sued over, or that's the bond amount of $7 trillion, the agency, it's market itself, but they're screwing us over a lot, and we're paying for their profits, right? But we can't talk about that, because we got to talk about political correctness, because everybody else is talking about it. So we have to talk about it, okay? This is a story he just brought in. 90% of Native Americans not offended by Washington Redskins name. Poll proves Redskins debate whipped up by perpetually offended media. Says 90% of Native Americans aren't offended by the Washington Redskins name, underscoring how the issue has been hyped up by both the perpetually offended media and politicians trying to control free speech. The Washington Post, a liberal newspaper, conducted a poll of over 500 Native Americans across the country and found that the general population is more concerned about the so-called racist Redskins than the group the team is supposedly offending. Even more, of the Native Americans who identified as being liberal, 80% of them called the name inoffensive. And giving the poll more credibility, a 2014 ESPN poll found that only 23%